freedom. Here's to more miles driven, more dollars saved, and more electrified vehicles than any other brand. Yours, Toyota.
Toyota. Let's go places.
There we go.
File too big.
What?
Alright, how's it going? We're gonna get this stream started. Hey, what's up? So, today I was working earlier when the votes were happening on in the house today. I was at work, and I heard on the radio right when it happened that the motion to one sec. Give me 1 second. I'm just getting everything set up. Yeah, alright. But anyways, I was working today, and I was listening to the radio, just like some talk news, because I wasn't in service or anything. So I was listening to the votes live on the motion to vacate the Speaker of the House, and I didn't think that they were going to be able to do it. I thought that it was going to not happen, but it fucking did. We're stoked. It's pretty fucking sick. You know? Fucking Matt Gaetz actually got it done. We're pretty fucking stoked about that. And, yeah. But, so anyways, the House had a vote on if they were going to oust McCarthy from the Speaker of the House, and it actually happened. I think it was 216 against 210, I believe. I think that there was 11 Republicans who voted to oust Speaker McCarthy, and the rest were all Democrats, I believe. But we got it done. We're stoked, you know. So we're gonna get into that, and then there's a few. There's the judge. Oh, the judge ordered a gag order on Donald Trump today also, so we're gonna look into that. And then there's a few, we'll just scroll through some news articles, read those, play some Risk, and see what happens. I'm kind of tired, but we'll get through it. All right. Here we go. Let's go right here. We'll watch some videos on about McCarthy getting ousted from the House Speaker. Or as the House Speaker. Let's see what Hassan has to say. That fucking
Yo, I cannot believe these
cunt.
shorts from Fabletics are 2 for $24. Look at the shorts I used to wear to the gym.
Anyway, let's get back to the goddamn government shutdown and the crisis averted.
The bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
There is nothing funnier to me. Like, listen, it doesn't matter what your politics are about, like funding Ukraine, Russia's unjustifiable invasion of Ukraine. But there is something hilarious about like a Republican leader being like, we have to fund Ukraine. And that's why I'm not passing the spending package, which I'm glad he did, because they got everything in this one, as far as I understand it. And
No,
he
we
was
don't
supposed to
need
do that.
funding to
It's
go to
crazy to me
Ukraine.
that 5 Republicans will just like destroy the entirety of the government. New York
What the fuck do you
Representative
mean,
Jamal
bro?
Bowman
They're
pulls
saving
fire
the
alarm in the House
government
building,
right
but it
now.
says it was an accident. Wait, what? Wait, what?
do you mean?
Bowman's
What they
office said it was an
want
accident. The
is
congressman
so
told
good.
reporters later Saturday I was trying to get to a door. I thought the fire alarm would open the door, and I pulled the fire alarm to open the door by accident. I was just trying to get to my vote, and the door that's usually
We saw this.
open
this
wasn't
this
open. It
had
was
me
closed.
laughing
Wait,
so
what
fucking
the
hard.
I think he thought it was an emergency door. Bro, the intrusive thoughts won, dude. What the?
Bro,
That's
Hassan is such a
hilarious.
fucking
Kevin
idiot.
McCarthy
I
was
keep
stuck
seeing
between a rock and a
clips
hard
of
place.
him just defending China for everything. He's just a China fucking cuckold, bro. He's just over there sucking off fucking Xi Jinping, bro. He fucking loves him. He loves the tiny
The Rock
Wang,
is
bro.
the 5
loves the
sick
tiny
freak
Wang.
Republicans, or I mean, I guess it was like 21, but you
Oh,
know, 5
motherfucker
major
from
ones that are
Spain?
just like being a thorn on his side, who say the moment that you collaborate with the Democratic Party, we're going to unseat you, which he had to give those assurances to those freaks, the Never Kevers, right? Who we love and support. So the Never Kevers were just like throwing a tantrum with like some
Never
of the
Kever.
most insane
That's me right there.
demands. Some of the most
They're
insane
not
demands. And we're
insane.
like, oh yeah, you have to give into these demands and like, you know, pass this in the House with our votes, which by the way would have, you know, never passed the Senate anyway. So that would have still effectively shut down the government. He had an opportunity to either do that, work with the psychopathic Never Kever caucus, and you know, put forward a bill that was not going to pass in the Senate, or go along with a deal that they had already cut, which meant, you know, working with the Democratic Party, which would immediately cause him to lose his job. So we'll see what happens here.
And of course,
Sims are taking victory laps. Yeah, I mean, in a weird way, they should, because the reality is this is the dumbest situation of all time, and it like perfectly demonstrates once again like what is just fundamentally wrong with the Republican Party. But the other reality, the scarier side of this conversation, is that like we should never have this happen. And given the way that our
What do you
government
mean?
currently operates, there is no real way to fix it. Truly striking L for House conservatives demanding massive domestic spending cuts. A few days ago, far-right GOP was insisting 10% of cuts to domestic programs were insufficient. Now it looks like they're going to get 0% of cuts instead, albeit also no Ukraine dollars for the time being. It's just so odd that like we just have to have this political back and forth like what, every 45 days. It's so dumb. It's not a real conversation. That's what makes me so mad about it. The worst part about it is that pretty much everyone that's playing along in this political theater knows it's fake. Does that make sense? I don't know what else to say about it other than it's pure political theater, and everybody knows it's pure political theater, and yet they choose to act out their roles instead. Like nobody just takes a deep breath and goes, dude, what are we doing? Like this is all fake. This is nonsense. Like we're just making this shit up. As an EU chatter, it's just wild that this conversation even happens in Ireland. I don't even know the budget is happening until it's announced and discussed like for max one day. Yes, because that is how it works everywhere. That is technically how it works in America too. That's the other part. It's just that any kind of obstruction or any kind of hurdle can always be used by the Democratic Party and the Republican Party as though it's like a serious one that we cannot live without, and you know, therefore we have to have like genuine deliberation, genuine back and forth on the matter, when in fact it's just another technical hurdle that does not need to exist and therefore is very frustrating.
He betrayed the Republican conference, that he betrayed promises that he made to become the speaker, and he could face potential consequences for that. I think that Matt Gaetz has been very clear that he is deeply frustrated with the Speaker of the House, and it's not just Gaetz, there are others as well who have questioned McCarthy's leadership. But
I think the media is wrong for this too. I think the media's
What do you
coverage
mean?
of this, as
What
though
are
it's
we
like
talking
a
about?
serious issue. I mean, it is a serious issue if it happens, but like whenever CNN covers this government shutdown as though these are like serious political demands that these never-kevers are making with like genuine ideological
I mean,
differences,
they
like
have
it's
ma-
just
they
wrong.
did
Like they're lying to you.
succeed
They
in
know
ousting
that there is no
Kevin
serious
McCarthy,
political
so-
disagreements here. It's all just theater, and they are allowing this theatrical display to continue by leaning into the seriousness. You know what I mean? They're like, oh yeah, there's like some serious differences, there's some serious disagreements here. It's just very odd. Like, why are you doing that? I feel like you're basically also doing a disservice to the public. Dude, I don't know why people are coming in here asking me why Jamal Bowman pulled the fucking fire alarm. How am I supposed to know? Bitch, I don't
Bro,
know. I've
he
only
pulled the
talked to
fire
him a
alarm
couple
because
times
he
on the
wanted-
phone. And that was years ago when I thought he
really
was like
is
way more
called
progressive
Talk
than he
to
actually
Jamal
is.
Bowman.
Like, he's not my best friend. What the fuck? Senate Democrats have the opportunity to do the funniest thing just for the fuck of it. Obviously, they wouldn't do that because that would destroy them. But just for the fun, just for the funsies, they're just like, yeah, you know, actually, we thought this budget sucks.
If you could, Lauren, for us, quickly, just kind of summarize what this Stop Gap Spending bill is all about. It does allow for
this guy
money
actually
toward
tries this,
natural
he's a cunt.
disasters, but it's without Ukraine assistance. What else?
Yeah, this is a 45-day short-term spending bill that funds the government through mid-November. Obviously, this is going to give them a couple of weeks to negotiate a fuller package, but this is where things could get very tricky because House Republicans have outlined to their members a very aggressive schedule that includes voting on individual one-year spending bills that would fund various agencies across the federal government. That schedule and those bills still face long odds in the House, but they are conservative bills that are going to be dead on arrival in the United States Senate.
Hey, Chad, as Hassan talked about his stance on Ukraine spending, don't want to derail the coverage, but I'm curious. I don't think I would spend a dime on Ukraine without conditions. The aid should be conditional, but of course it's never going to be conditional. I don't have an issue with like the aid going to Ukrainian small businesses, in my opinion, like, but not those kinds of conditions, for the record. Let me clarify. Aid from the United States of America under the auspices of U.S. aid oftentimes have conditions of austerity and conditions of control, not that kind of conditions. Conditional aid as far as on the weapons side should revolve around like the obvious boundaries that the American government already sets, like not using it on Russian soil, blah, 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 better tracking measures, but also, you know, with an express purpose of like inevitably ending the war. Why not on Russian soil? I mean, ask the American government. What do you mean, why not on Russian soil? It is a delicate balance of like not upsetting Russia enough, kind of, from the American perspective at least, that they don't consider it to be like an act of war between America and Russia. But they're slowly but surely, like, you know, maxing out on the tension side. Aren't they already fighting on soil Russia claims as it is? No,
right,
we're talking about like
some
mainland
into
Russia,
actual news.
like straight up fucking like Russia. Prior to Russian invasion of Ukraine borders Russia, and they kind of fucking drop.
All right,
They dropped some
House
munitions
Republicans
on
rally around
on
idea
Russian
to
territories
expel
from.
Matt GAETZ. Let's see what this has to say right
If
here.
you live in Montana, you could lower your electric bill to less than $30 a month. How? First, you need to live in a qualified area. Enter your zip code below to ensure your eligibility.
Republican Representative Matt Gaetz from right here in my district in Florida has made it clear that this week, by God, he is going to put forward his resolution to oust Kevin McCarthy as the Speaker of the House.
He did!
Assuming,
bro.
of course, he doesn't leave it in the
fucking
bathroom.
did.
You know, got to get over that big hurdle first. It's been a problem for him in the past. But he
Oh,
says
the
he's
note that was
totally
left
going to
in the
oust
bathroom.
Kevin McCarthy this week, or
He
at least try
fucking
to.
did it. He
And
did it.
if
It
Republicans
worked.
in the House have their way, it's not McCarthy that should be afraid for his job. It's actually Matt Gaetz.
Oh, really?
According to
McCarthy
multiple reports
fucking
out
got-
over the last 48 hours,
McCarthy got
Republicans in the
fucking
House of
ousted,
Representatives
bro.
have become so tired of Matt Gaetz's antics.
Oh, really? Really?
That they're actually
Fuck
considering voting to expel him from the House of Representatives altogether.
smarky
depending,
cunt,
of
bro.
course, on the results of the ongoing
This guy.
ethics
I don't even know who he
investigation
is, but he sounds like
into
a
Matt
smarky
Gaetz for
cunt.
things like sexual misconduct, illicit drug use, and corruption. Those, of course, were the things that the DOJ was investigating and then decided as things went further, we are not going to bring charges against him, which came as a surprise to all of the cooperating witnesses that the DOJ had. They had delivered damning evidence against Matt Gaetz, according to them, by the way. But the DOJ said, nah, we're just not going to charge it.
What was
well, a couple months ago, a month or two ago, really, the House Ethics Committee decided, you know what? We're going to reopen this investigation into Matt Gaetz. The Republican-controlled House said, we need to investigate one of our own. And now that Gaetz is, of course, pushing to expel McCarthy from the leadership role, he wouldn't leave the House, he just wouldn't be Speaker anymore. Republicans are like, you know what? Pending the results of this investigation, we may have to oust you from the House altogether. Now, before I get into what this is telling us, it's important to read a couple quotes from some members of the Republican caucus in the House. One of them said, quote, "No one can stand him at this point, a smart guy without morals." And that is according to Fox News White House correspondent Jackie Heinrich. From Fox News, a Republican lawmaker told that to Fox News. Another one said, "We want him out." An unnamed Republican lawmaker told CNN.
Unnamed.
Another one, of course. This is Republican Representative Carlos Gimenez from Florida. He said, "Expelling a member of Congress is a very serious concern. And I have serious disagreements with Mr. Gaetz. He is Joe Biden's favorite Republican because he causes a lot of confusion and dissension inside the party itself."
Stupid. No, he's
a vote to expel a member of Congress takes 2/3 of the body.
Conservative Party.
So it's not a simple majority. It would be a very difficult thing to do. You would have to have, 100 or more, I think, Republicans side with every single 100 or more, I think. So it's not a simple majority. Congress takes 2/3 itself. A vote to expel a member of Congress takes 2/3 of the body. So it's not a simple majority. It would be a very difficult thing to do. You would have to have, 100 or more, I think, Republicans side with every single Democrat in order to kick Matt Gaetz out of the House of Representatives. Then, of course, we move to a special election down here in his district. And unfortunately, being expelled from Congress does not prevent you from running again and winning and getting your seat back. So even if he is expelled, Matt Gaetz would just jump right back in a special election, probably win given this district, and then boom, he's right back in the House. So it's kind of like, the Flintstones thing. You throw Dino out the front door and then you turn around, he's jumped in the side window. That's basically what Matt Gaetz would be doing. And by the way, if it's not Matt Gaetz, trust me, this district is not going to give you somebody better. In fact, we actually could end up with far worse. But still, Matt Gaetz is a piece of trash, and I'm okay with him getting expelled. The other thing, of course, is Republicans know that the Ethics Committee is investigating Matt Gaetz. And now multiple Republicans are like, well, depending on the results of the investigation, we may have to vote to kick him out. Now, you cannot convince me that these Republicans do not know what this committee has found. They do. There's a good chance some of these unnamed Republicans are actually on the committee. So they could be fully aware of what this committee has already uncovered regarding Matt Gaetz's conduct. And that could be why they're now saying, listen, we may have to vote this dude out, depending on what the committee's report says. No. They know. They already know what the committee's found, and I don't think they'd be saying these kinds of things if they didn't think the committee was going to come out with something pretty shocking. Of course, they're angry about the Kevin McCarthy thing. That explains the timing of it, but the actual idea of it, that's coming because I can guarantee you they know something that the rest of the public does not. So this is a good one to keep an eye on. Hey everyone, this is Aspen. And did you know that for the low cost of $0 per day, you can subscribe to the Fair and Balanced YouTube channel? We also encourage you to like, comment, and share. But again, click that subscribe button and help Aspen not be so grumpy.
There's nothing more powerful than you, making your thing happen.
All right, here we go. McCarthy ousted as House Speaker.
On this vote, the yeas are 216. The nays are 210. The resolution is adopted. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. The office of Speaker of the House of the United States House of Representatives is hereby declared vacant.
An historic moment. For the first time in the history of the United States,
crazy. That
the
is the
Speaker
first
of the
time
House
ever
has
in
been
the United
removed.
States in the history
For
of the
those
United
paying
States.
attention at home and trying to understand why it's not a
This is a
218 vote
historic
count,
day.
it requires a majority of those present and voting. There are 426 people present and voting,
It would have had to
426,
be
which means that you need half plus 1.
But a bunch of people
and
were just
that
in
would
the
be
bathroom hiding from the
214
vote.
votes.
So
And they have
I wonder
the
who
yeas
those,
to remove
who
Speaker
those
McCarthy
people were.
are 216. It is a resounding defeat for Speaker McCarthy with 8 of his fellow House Republicans, including Congressman Matt Gaetz, who led this effort,
But I guess I was wrong.
leading the charge to join the Democrats to remove him from power. Let's listen in if they are they talking right now?
Pursuant to Clause 8B, 3B of Rule 1, is the Honorable Patrick T.
it's cold
McHenry
down
of
here.
North Carolina. Signed sincerely, Kevin F. McCumber, Acting Clerk.
Pursuant to Clause 8B3 of Rule 1, I will now act as Speaker pro tem. The Chair will inform the members of the House the following. The office of the Speaker was rendered vacant pursuant to the adoption of House Resolution 757. Upon a vacancy in the office of Speaker, Clause 8B3 of Rule 1 provides that the next member on a list submitted by the Speaker, pursuant to the rule, acts as Speaker pro tem until the election of a new Speaker.
I don't know
bestows the
anything
authorities
about
of
the
office of
person
Speaker
who he
upon the Speaker
actually
pro tem to the extent necessary and
appointed
appropriate
as
to
the
that end.
Speaker.
In the opinion of the Chair, prior to proceeding to the election of a Speaker, it would be prudent to first recess for the relative caucus and conferences to meet and discuss the path forward. Accordingly, pursuant to Clause 12A of Rule 1, the Chair declares the House in recess subject to the call of the Chair.
An angry gaveling down by
That
the man
was so
named
fucking
as Speaker
dramatic,
pro tem,
bro.
meaning
Watch
chair.
this. he's a little softy too, bro.
An
He's
angry
just
gaveling
like a
down
fucking
by
little-
the man named as Speaker pro tem, meaning he is the temporary Speaker of the House, that
that
is
was funny.
Congressman Patrick
Oh.
McHenry, a Republican from North Carolina, a close ally
Patrick
of
McHenry.
Kevin McCarthy, who is no longer
I don't know who
the
he
Speaker
is.
of the House. Let us go to
We might have to
Manu
look him up
Raju,
later.
who is outside the House chamber. Manu,
Patrick
a devastating
McHenry.
day
Right, that's
for
what his name
former
was.
Speaker Kevin McCarthy, who told reporters that the 15 rounds he went through of balloting in January taught him how to govern. Apparently, not so much.
Yeah, he thought he was able to get his various warring factions together through that whole process. But as we saw, it devolved over just a handful of members within his own conference were furious at his decisions, including to keep the government open by relying on Democratic votes. They have a sharp disagreement over spending levels and some personality conflicts as well. But given the narrowness of this House Republican majority, Kevin McCarthy was captive. It was essentially isolated within his own conference, given the opposition within his right flank. He knew full well that a handful of members could upset his plans at any given time on any party-line vote. He had initially calculated to try to align himself with those members on the far right, but at times when simply needing to do the basic essence of governing, whether it's raising the national debt limit or keeping the government open, he needed Democratic support. There's a Democratic Senate and a Democratic White House. That is something that those members on the far right of his Conference simply would not accept, which is why he has met this fate, a historic vote, first time ever, removed from the speakership. Now the House is in a complete state of paralysis. There will be a vote eventually, either tonight, maybe tomorrow, to name a new speaker. That is a bit unclear at the moment. And it's also unclear what Kevin McCarthy will do. Will he put himself up as a candidate for speaker? He has said for some time that he will fight, he's ready to fight, but does that mean he'll actually be a candidate? That is a major question at the moment. And can anyone get 218 votes in this bitterly divided House and this bitterly divided Republican conference? A lot of these members who are aligned themselves with McCarthy want him to fight. They don't want Matt Gaetz to win this round right here. So there are a lot of questions about all the next steps here, Jake. But one thing is clear. This is a historic moment here in the House, and a very, very angry members of the Republican conference here emerging, wanting to know how to go forward and worried about their own political hides, worried that they could lose.
You know what I wonder? Is if they don't elect a Speaker of the House in the 45 days, so I think on November 14th, if I'm right, that I wonder what's going to happen, because if they don't have a Speaker of the House, are they going to be able to, or is it going to be, are they going to be able to vote because they have the, what's his name, the Patrick guy? I guess I don't know how this is going to work out, but I guess we'll figure it out. I think that that'd be hilarious if they weren't able to vote because they couldn't get a Speaker of the House, and then the government had to shut down.
The House, given the leadership crisis they are now facing, Jake, as they try to pick up the pieces. Jake.
Manu, are we expecting to see Congressman McCarthy come out anytime soon?
We are expecting him. He's expected to walk out this way towards his office. We'll try to ask him a question as he does come out. So we'll see, Jake, in just a matter of minutes, whether or not the now former speaker, wants to weigh in and whether he will detail his plans in the days ahead, Jake.
There you go.
When you have these woke revolutions, it requires all of us at some point to say, no, not going to do.
The yeas are 216. The nays are 210. The resolution is adopted.
I remember when this fucking happened.
Without objection, the motion to reconsider
I think
is
it's
laid
funny
on the
that
table.
he had to say
The
that he was
of Speaker
voted out.
of the House of the United States House of Representatives is hereby declared vacant.
Yeah! Fuck yeah.
All right, that is a stunner. You have never seen what you see unfolding now in the well of the House in American history. A speaker essentially kicked out of his job. We don't know the breakdown of Democrats and Republicans, if any Democrats at all had voted to keep Kevin McCarthy in that position. We do know here that this holds 216, enough to say that Kevin McCarthy will step down. What he does after that, anyone's guess, whether he puts his name back in the hat to try again for that job.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.
Oh, that was really short.
On this vote, the yeas are 216. The nays are 210. The resolution is adopted. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. The office of Speaker of the House of the United States House of Representatives is hereby declared vacant.
An historic moment. For the first time in the history of the United States, the Speaker of the House has been removed. For those paying attention at home and trying to understand why it's not a 218 vote count, it requires a majority of those present and voting. There are 426 people present and voting, 426, which means that you need half plus one, and that would be 214 votes. And they have the yeas to remove Speaker McCarthy are 216. It is a resounding defeat for Speaker McCarthy, with 8 of his fellow House Republicans, including Congressman Matt Gaetz, who led this effort, leading the charge to joining the Democrats to remove him from power. Let's listen in if they are they talking right now?
Pursuant to Clause 8B, 3B of Rule 1, is the Honorable Patrick T. McHenry of North Carolina.
This is a CBS News special report. I'm Nora O'Donnell in Washington, and we are coming on the air at this moment with breaking news: a historic vote unfolding in the House as Republican Speaker Kevin McCarthy faces a leadership challenge from the far-right faction of his own party. Right now, you are listening to a roll call vote, and the future for Speaker McCarthy is not good. There are already 8 Republicans who have voted to remove Kevin McCarthy from the speakership. If all of the Democrats join those 8 Republicans, McCarthy will be ousted in a historic first. This has never happened in U.S. history. I want to bring in Scott McFarland, who is our congressional correspondent there on Capitol Hill. Scott, good afternoon.
And Nora, in the past, the U.S. House has tried to oust a speaker, but never before have they succeeded. But they're on the verge of doing so now. A group of House conservatives in the Freedom Caucus who have been needling and threatening to hold this vote for many months made their move today.
And they did it.
They have galvanized enough support to oust California Congressman Kevin McCarthy from his speakership. McCarthy, who won the speakership after a 15-round marathon in January in which he did battle politically with some of these same Republicans, and whose grip has been somewhat tenuous on the speakership because of these conservative members of his caucus, today appears to be destined to lose the speakership. A universal, unified vote of House Democrats helping these unlikely allies, conservative Freedom Caucus members and House Democrats joining together. Nora, what's the concern these House Freedom Caucus members have had? They don't like the deal Kevin McCarthy cut back in May to avert that debt ceiling crisis. They didn't like the agreement he made Saturday to keep the government open another 45 days, a deal that had more Democratic votes than Republicans. And the leader of this revolt is Matt Gaetz of Florida. Nora, he has had any number of concerns about, he says, transparency with McCarthy.
Stand by, because now as we watch the roll call vote in the House of Representatives, there are now more than 216 votes, a majority, to remove Kevin McCarthy as the Speaker of the House. The Republican from California has had a short term as Speaker, some 8 months and 26 days, because of, as Scott has just mentioned, his efforts to move forward and avert a government shutdown, not only enraged far-right members of his own party, but also Democrats who voting in unison today to also remove Kevin McCarthy as Speaker of the House. There was some last-minute vote jockeying that was going on. Republican allies of Speaker McCarthy calling and, in some words, begging Democrats to side with them to try and keep McCarthy in office, to not plunge the House into chaos, but they did not.
That have not already been recorded alphabetically.
Banks. Nay.
That unfolded today. Matt Gaetz, as you mentioned, was the one who called this vote. But McCarthy could have been saved if Democrats had voted no on this motion, but they voted yes, and you have been reporting that there was a decision made this morning about an appearance that Kevin McCarthy made on Face the Nation here on CBS on Sunday that enraged them. Tell us about that.
Video clip shown during a Democratic caucus meeting this morning in which Kevin McCarthy, speaking with our Margaret Brennan on Sunday, blamed Democrats for the near government shutdown Saturday. Democrats did not like that clip. What's more, Democrats have had any number of grievances with Kevin McCarthy. They were not inclined to save him. They don't like that after the January 6th attack, Nora, that McCarthy still voted to decertify some of those electors. They don't like the photo he took with Donald Trump in January 2021 at Mar-a-Lago, kind of resuscitating Trump among Republicans. And Nora, they don't like that McCarthy unilaterally launched that impeachment inquiry into President Biden a few weeks ago. They were not going to swoop in and save Kevin McCarthy.
you're seeing now that those comments that McCarthy made on Face the Nation this Sunday that Democrats watched this morning that brought them into unison. They thought, why are you insulting the Democrats who actually helped him avert a government shutdown? Also want to bring in John Dickerson, who is with us. And John, you even heard allies, Republican allies of Speaker McCarthy today saying, don't plunge this House of Representatives into chaos. But where do we stand now?
Well, we stand in a moment of uncertainty. I mean, the problem is that while McCarthy may be gone, you can't beat something with nothing. And the forces that have removed him from the speakership don't have a second in command. This has long been the problem with this portion of the Republican conference, which back when Newt Gingrich was speaker, ended up pushing him out. But same with John Boehner, even a little bit with Paul Ryan. There was never an alternative. And that's the problem for the Republicans, who are now faced with a mess, a moment of chaos. The House is in a doom loop, and there is no person to sashay in and save things. And this is in part because those who have decided to run an incendiary version of politics.
It's not about the money. It's about sending a message
that kicks out the support from under the institutions of the House. That's the way the modern Republican Party has grown itself, the way Kevin McCarthy came into power, which means in a moment of tension, you can't then suddenly say, well, wait, let's save the institution, because so much time has been spent undermining the institution by saying it's fraudulent and by saying it has no weight.
And I just, let's listen in for just a moment.
Or who wish to change their vote.
No one.
And as you can see, the presiding member is asking if anyone wants to change their vote. To turn over essentially what is now the outcome, which is to, for the first time in U.S. history, everybody there will now be part of this moment of ousting
the Speaker
of the House. It's never happened before. One of the shortest tenures ever for Kevin McCarthy.
That's what I actually want to look up.
Who served a short period like this was a man named Michael Kerr in 1876, and he died of consumption.
He died of consumption. I
Kevin
wonder how
McCarthy's
long.
speakership is dying from a fight within his own party, the far right wing of his party, who has led a revolt against him on a number of issues, specifically led by Matt Gaetz.
What was the shortest amount of time someone was Speaker of the House?
When McCarthy was ascending to this, he said the one thing you cannot allow is the motion to vacate, because that gives one person the power to undermine your speakership. And if it doesn't come to pass what has come to pass today, it nevertheless can hold a sort of Damocles over your entire speakership, always threatening anything you do. And the problem with that is that a legislative body is built on compromise. It is built on the kinds of agreements that Matt Gaetz has now used to bounce McCarthy from the chair.
McCarthy is the third.
The resolution is adopted.
Is the third shortest.
Without objection, the motion to
the only
reconsider
one who's been,
is laid on the table. The office
as
of Speaker of the House of the United States House of Representatives is hereby
I wonder
declared
what Ben
vacant.
Shapiro's going to say about it. Because he wasn't really happy
I don't know about
about
the rest
this
of you,
whole
but I just
thing.
got the chills. You know,
I got stoked when that happened.
The House of Representatives serves a very important function as a representative body in a democracy. Serves alongside the Senate, makes up the U.S. Congress, one of our three important branches of government. And now the Speaker of the House, who is second in line to the presidency, that office is now vacant. I want to bring in Nancy Cordes, who covered the Hill for a long time, as well as many of us have, and now our chief White House correspondent. Nancy?
Well, Nora, this is a very serious situation. The government is set to run out of funding again.
within 43 days. And as of right now, there is no Speaker of the House who would make any kind of an agreement with the Senate, with the President, and there's no telling who the Speaker will be or when they will be seated. And so there is a major power vacuum all of a sudden in the House of Representatives.
This is so
a very
funny.
tricky situation for the White House. On one hand, they haven't had very nice things to say about Kevin
So
McCarthy
are they
over the
not
past
going to
couple of
be
weeks.
able
They've
to
been
vote
accusing
after if they don't have a Speaker of the House? Will the government shut down? I wonder. I don't know how that works.
Of backing away from a deal that he made with the president, a budget deal back in May. On the other hand, at least he was a known quantity. They knew who they were dealing with, and now they have no idea who they'll be dealing with, let alone whether House Republicans are going to be able to coalesce around anyone.
Yeah,
Nancy
that
Cordes
is
at the White
that
House.
is gonna be
Thank you.
Crazy.
The Republican-led
I guess that McCarthy's
House
not
of
going to run again
Representatives
for
has voted
Speaker
to
of the
oust
House. So
Kevin McCarthy, a Republican of California, as Speaker of the House. This is the first removal of its kind in congressional history. I want to bring in Scott McFarlane, who is there up on the Hill. Scott, what happens now?
Nancy, Nora, you're looking at the new Speaker Pro Tem, at least for now, the temporary Speaker of the House.
Bro,
is
he
Patrick
looks like a
McHenry,
dork.
McCarthy loyalist and ally from North Carolina.
He looks
We're
like
keeping my
a
eyes
dork,
to the side
bro.
because Kevin McCarthy may be walking by any moment now, and we'll want to ask if he is going to run again to be Speaker, because nothing of what just happened precludes him from running again for that post. They have to dust off some very old game plans and playbooks right now. They're dusty because they've never been used before, but there is a continuity of Congress plan where somebody fills in the role as Speaker until a new Speaker election is conducted. Patrick McHenry of North Carolina for now is holding that spot. There's going to have to be another set of Speaker elections, and we can see a recurrence of what we saw in January.
Yeah,
a
that
15-vote
15-day
marathon before Kevin McCarthy secured the necessary votes. A speakership that began with history is kind of ending with history today.
True.
Scott McFarlane standing by there, waiting for former Speaker of the House Kevin McCarthy. Want to bring back in John Dickerson, and this is a victory for Matt Gaetz, a Republican out of Florida who has had a personal as involved in a lot of personal acrimony with Kevin McCarthy, but this is a success. He led this effort, and it has been successful because 8 Republicans voted yes, and none of the Democrats voted to save Kevin McCarthy.
And we should take hold of this obvious fact, is that Matt Gaetz and his Confederates voted out the Speaker for the sin of working with Democrats.
I mean, honestly,
and they did that by
a confederacy is actually a pretty good way to rule government, in my opinion. I know that it has a bad connotation to it because of just like the relation
by
to
working
slavery,
with Democrats.
But I think that it is
it's
good
a
way to run
reality of the
government.
institution that they are a part of. And that is the difficulty for the Republican Party, is that it has built itself and brought itself to power by saying essentially that the institution is so thoroughly broken, the other party is so thoroughly at odds with the American progress, that it holds positions that are completely against the messiness of legislation that has to happen to make progress. And so Americans look at the institution of Congress, which they already had a basement level opinion of, and now they're going into the deep shale. Whatever is below the basement, that is likely to be where the American opinions are when they look at this fight and this complete collapse that has happened in the House, and no immediate solution to how that's going to go forward so that they can begin to be in a position to address the very serious and real challenges the country faces.
I want to bring back in Scott McFarlane, who is on the Hill. And Scott, what role did Donald Trump at all play in this?
Now, Donald Trump certainly played a key role in keeping Democrats from saving Kevin McCarthy. Democrats told me today one of their issues, why they wouldn't swoop in, is their concern about what Kevin McCarthy did in support of Donald Trump right after January 6th. I've got some new intel from some of the House Republicans who voted against Kevin McCarthy today. They say they're not going to have an immediate vote on a new speaker. They're going to take a recess that is what they call subject to the call of the chair, which is a nice Washington way of saying indefinitely. I asked 2 of the defectors from Kevin McCarthy and his Republican caucus if they had a new name to offer up, and they said no, which is really the fundamental issue and has been from the start. There's been no alternative, no plan B revealed by this faction of House Republicans, which is why Kevin McCarthy is not only not precluded from running again, but might not be dissuaded from running again after today's vote. There simply is nobody else to take his place.
And Scott, one other thing is we see the cameras around Matt Gaetz. He has been accused by even fellow Republicans of engaging in juvenile behavior, in the words of Congressman Kelly Armstrong, as someone who is showboating and seeking attention. How has this also refocused attention on the ethics issues that Congressman Gaetz faces? What are some of the things they're investigating when it comes to Mr. Gaetz?
Yeah, that's right, Nora. His critics have said Matt Gaetz is starving and always ravenous for media attention, for a platform, and for fundraising. And he certainly has gotten his share of attention and a platform over the past 72 hours since he began executing this plan. There has been an investigation at the federal level which found no criminal misconduct of Matt Gaetz, nothing to charge. There's been an ethics investigation into Matt Gaetz.
The one person right now in our government who's actually doing something
that has not resulted in an ethics committee finding against him. But his critics say, this is personal, that Matt Gaetz is personally showing animus towards Kevin McCarthy, and that's what inspired this. But it was, nevertheless, Nora,
I don't think that it was personal.
By Matt Gaetz.
Scott McFarland, thank you. We are also witnessing a scrum just on the steps of the Capitol with Congressman Gaetz. Let's listen in for a moment.
In progress right now with some of my colleagues. I think there was a stage of denial, and I've certainly experienced a good amount of their anger, and now we appear to be headed toward bargaining. I think the world of Steve Scalise. I think he'd make a phenomenal speaker.
Are you afraid of getting expelled?
I'm afraid of $33 trillion in debt crushing the working people in my district. I'm afraid of the dollar losing its status as the global reserve currency. If they want to expel me, let me know when they have the vote.
Has anyone talked about that with you? 5 days left before we got less than 45 days.
Heard Congressman Gaetz, who led this revolt. Oh, let's just see. Look at Scott McFarland is trying to shout a question to the speaker there. Go back to Scott's camera.
I think Kevin McCarthy should take a hint. After 15 ballots.
An effort. We're not there. You go. That's the speaker just passed by there. And after. Scott, did he say anything?
Yeah, he said he's going to make a statement shortly. I would have been inclined to him make the statement just here right now. I asked him if he's going to run for speaker again, because that really is the fundamental question that underwrites all of this. He says he's about to speak. He's moving toward his office where cameras are prohibited. So perhaps he's going to take a moment to gather the troops, get a nose count, get a sense of where things head from here, maybe have discussions with the defectors or with the Democratic leader, but didn't immediately answer a point-blank question he clearly heard. Are you going to run again for speaker? That's what's going to dictate what happens next year in the House, Nora.
Right. And how many votes, remind us again, did it take for Kevin McCarthy to assume the speakership?
Well, at the time he did in January, it took 218, a majority of the House. The numbers have shifted.
Sorry, 15 roll calls. That's what I meant. I should have asked you how many roll call votes. Yes.
15 long, hour-long rounds that spanned days and really was an unprecedented moment in Congress. We've just seen 2 of them involving Kevin McCarthy in the same year.
And I have to just ask you, Scott, because we just heard Congressman Gaetz was asked about Steve Scalise, who is the majority leader of the U.S. House of Representatives. Is he a likely alternative?
He has shown no outward interest to this, and when asked questions about it, he's deflected and said he's in support of Kevin McCarthy. If there's going to be a plan B, some alternative, it's going to have to happen before Kevin McCarthy starts mobilizing, because he is going to have the ability to get at least 200, 210 members of his conference back on board. They stuck with him till the end, and no doubt he could bring that to the floor again later today or tomorrow. But what do you do about the 11 defectors? Or in this case, the 8 defectors on the final vote? How do you win them back? There's no indication he's got the tool to do it, or he would have done it before today.
Scott McFarland on Capitol Hill. Want to also touch base. There's been another bit of breaking news today, important from the day 2 in the business fraud trial against Donald Trump. The judge today imposing a limited gag order on the former president, Donald Trump. Want to bring in CBS's Robert Costa. He has been inside the courtroom for most of the day.
Usually gag orders happen during a
Robert, tell us about this news.
During
good to be with you.
Civil trial, but so that the two people aren't talking about each other. But in
what is effectively a gag order against former President Trump as he sat there in the first row of the courtroom in this ongoing civil lawsuit trial, and said that Trump's post about one of his clerks in the court, where Trump insinuated that this clerk, an employee of the judge who works closely with the judge, was somehow the girlfriend of Senator Chuck Schumer, a Democrat of New York, was out of bounds, entirely out of line, and warned that if anyone disparages or talks about his clerk or his employees in any way, there will be serious consequences. It was a dramatic moment here in just day 2 of this trial.
And what do you think the effect of that is on Donald Trump and some of his posts?
They're just trying to silence
For Donald Trump, the former president, he is someone who always tries to speak up about his criticism of the judge, his criticism of the Attorney General in New York, Letitia James, and so many other critics, and he always argues that this is free speech. But whether it's the special counsel Jack Smith in Washington, who has had concerns about Trump's commentary about him, or whether it's the judge here in this civil lawsuit in New York, Trump is routinely testing the bounds of what's appropriate and what's legal.
Robert Costa, thank you so much with that news out of New York involving Donald Trump and that gag order. Once again, want to remind everyone we are on the air as Kevin McCarthy has been ousted as the Speaker of the House in a historic moment. This is the first time in our nation's history that this has ever happened, and I want to show everyone once again when the clerk read the roll call.
The office of Speaker of the House of the United States House of Representatives.
I mean, the problem is that while McCarthy may be gone, you can't beat something with nothing. And the forces that have removed him from the speakership don't have a second in command. This has long been the problem with this portion of the Republican conference, which back when Newt Gingrich was speaker, ended up pushing him out.
What the fuck?
But same with John Boehner, even a little bit with Paul Ryan. There is never an alternative. And that's the problem for the Republicans, who are now faced with a mess, a moment of chaos. The House is in a doom loop, and there is no person to sashay in and save things. And this is in part because those who have decided to run an incendiary version of politics that kicks out the support from under the institutions of the House.
All right, we're going to try
That's the way the modern Republican Party has grown itself, the way Kevin McCarthy came into power, which means in a moment of tension, you can't then suddenly say, well, wait, let's save the institution, because so much time has been spent undermining the institution by saying it's fraudulent and by saying it has no weight.
And I just, let's listen in for just a moment.
Or who wish to change their vote.
I'm tired. Oh.
And as you can see, the presiding member is asking if anyone wants to change their vote, to turn over essentially what is now the outcome, which is to, for the first time in U.S. history, everybody there will now be part of this moment of ousting a Speaker of the House. It's never happened before. One of the shortest tenures ever for Kevin McCarthy. The last member of the House that served a short period like this was a man named Michael Kerr in 1876, and he died of consumption. Kevin McCarthy's speakership is dying from a fight within his own party, the far right wing of his party, who has led a revolt against him on a number of issues, specifically led by Matt Gaetz. John Dickerson.
All right, let's watch his his speech.
Good evening, all. You know, President Abraham Lincoln once said, "I'm an optimist because I don't see any other way." If you ever come to my office, you'll see the portraits of Lincoln and Reagan. And I firmly believe if Reagan gave us advice,
you
he
dick.
would say,
Didn't listen to
if
me.
you believe your principles bring people greater freedom, you should be happy about it. I've always been excited that I've been a happy conservative. But I've always believed that I've been so fortunate to be an American. My journey to this office was something people wouldn't understand. I grew up in a town of Bakersfield, California, the son of a firefighter, the grandson of immigrants. Parents worked hard, the youngest in my family. Didn't have great wealth, and got out of high school, I didn't have great grades. Couldn't get a scholarship, went to community college. Flipped cars to try to pay my way through it. Went to visit some buddies away in college for a weekend, stopped at the grocery store to cash a check, and I won the lottery. One of the first in California. It was before Biden economics. It was only 5,000, but it went much further back then.
Wait, he won the lottery?
Took my folks to dinner.
What the
Put
fuck?
the majority of the rest of the money into the stock market and did pretty well. The next semester, I took a break from school. I went to buy a franchise, but no one said they would sell me one because I was only 20 years old. But I learned then never to give up. So I opened my own business, selling sandwiches. 3 things I learned. First to work, last to leave, last to be paid. I wanted to finish my college degree. At that time, no one in my family had finished a 4-year degree. I did pretty well. I now had enough money that I could pay my way through school as long as I went to Cal State. So I sold my business, going to school. I opened up the local paper and said, be a summer intern in Washington, D.C. with my local congressman. I did not know this man, but I thought he'd be lucky to have me, so I applied. And you know what he did? He turned me down. But you want to know the end of the story? I got elected to a seat I couldn't get an internship for. I ended up being the 55th Speaker of the House, one of the greatest honors. I loved every minute. And the one thing I will tell you is, doing the right thing isn't always easy, but it is necessary. I don't regret standing up for choosing governance over grievance. It is my responsibility. It is my job. I do not regret negotiating. Our government is designed to find compromise.
Fuck off.
I don't regret my efforts to build coalitions and find solutions. I was raised to solve problems, not create them. So I may have lost a vote today, but as I walk out of this chamber, I feel fortunate to have served the American people. I leave the speakership with a sense of pride, accomplishment, and yes, optimism. From the day I entered politics, my mission has always been to make tomorrow better than today. I fought for what I believe in, and I believe in this country of America. My goals have not changed. My ability to fight is just in a different form. You need 218. Unfortunately, 4% of our conference can join all the Democrats and dictate who can be the Republican Speaker in this House. I don't think that rule is good for the institution, but apparently I'm the only one. I believe I can continue to fight, maybe in a different manner. I will not run for Speaker again. I'll have the conference pick somebody else. I hope you realize that every day I did the job, regardless whether you underestimated me or not, I wanted to do it with a smile. I grew to enjoy you, even on your toughest days and your questions. I could always tell what day it was based upon your question. Monday, you would ask if I could pass the bill. Tuesday was whether the rule would pass. Wednesday was the greatest challenge ever to my speakership. And Thursday, when we passed the bill, you didn't think it was a very big deal. And it all started again on Friday. You know, I wouldn't change a thing. I do believe, I got a new portrait in there too of Teddy Roosevelt. You all know the man in the arena. One of my favorite parts of it, who errs, who comes up short again and again, but there is no effort without error and shortcoming. who spends himself in a worthy cause, who knows the triumph of high achievement, and if he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly. I always like to take a risk. Saturday, I took a risk for the American public. Regardless what anybody says, no one knew whether that would pass. The Democrats didn't want that bill. Yes, they pull a fire alarm. Yes, they do their conga line. Yes, they wanted to delay. But it was all for the American people. I could not look the troops in the eye and say I would not pay them. For those who spoke on the floor, I thank them for their positive talks. I don't know what those who voted against and said there was some deal, they were never a part of any deal. For those who said about what we accomplished, I'm proud of what we accomplished. From the Parents' Bill of Rights to our energy bill. But if they want to hold me liable because the Senate didn't take it up or the President didn't take it up, that's politics, for what I know. But the one thing I do know, this country is too great for small visions of those 8. To any child that are listening and who are coming to visit the Capitol, this is a place I want you to visit. I liked opening the Capitol back up again. I liked taking away the metal detectors. I liked committees being able to work. I liked people being able to visit. I hope you liked being able to be back in. I think it was important that members actually show up to work as well. You know, to paraphrase Lou Gehrig, he
I wonder
said,
if these two have
I might have been given a bad break,
have
but
an
I
alliance.
truly still consider myself to be the luckiest man on the face of the earth. There's no other country that you could rise to be the 55th Speaker, not get an internship, and be able to fight for the American public. So it was my greatest honor to be able to do it. I love my conference well. I love to be able to I've been a part of the leadership team for quite some time. We won 2 majorities. As leader, I'm proud of the fact we only gained races, only gained seats. I'm proud of the fact as a Republican leader, we elected more women. We elected more minorities.
Bullshit.
We expanded the base. I'm proud of the fact that for the 5 years I was leader, 2 election cycles, we gained 5 more seats in California, 5 more in New York. We won in places no one thought we could win. The same thing, you would underestimate me. You always said we'd lose each time around. We kept gaining.
Is he gonna trade?
I intend to make sure that we gain and keep the majority in the next cycle as well. With that, I look forward to your positive questions. Yes. Oh, I'll look at that.
I thought you had to trade at 5.
Loyalty within the conference. We've heard you say approximately 10,000 times that you never give up. So I'm wondering, why not? Why did you make the decision not to put your name forward again and try to grind it out like you did when you won the job in the first place?
You know, you need 218 for the rule, 218
no.
to move forward. And I'll never give up on the American people. That doesn't mean I have to be Speaker to do what I have to do for the American people. There's a lot of things I could do for the American people.
Oh, we did trade.
But you know what's interesting? Everybody's sitting there. In today's world, if you're sitting in Congress,
All right, I'm going to
and
trade.
you took a gamble to make sure
take...
government was still open, and 8 people can throw you out as Speaker, and the Democrats who said they wanted to keep government open, I think you've got a real divide. I think you've got a real institutional
Hopefully
problem.
I can.
Interesting, it was in this room after we had won the majority, I hadn't become Speaker last.
That's
and
my move.
Nancy Pelosi came to me. She was Speaker at the time on the way out.
Right now.
And I told her I was having issues with getting enough votes. And she said, what's the problem? I said, they want this one person can rule you out. She was the only Speaker to have changed that rule. I had the power to call the vote on her, but I never would. I lost some votes because of it. And she said, just give it to him. I'll always back you up. I made the same offer to Boehner and same thing.
I wonder if she did back him up.
To Paul, because I believe in the institution. I think today was a political decision by the Democrats. And I think the things they have done in the past hurt the institution. And they just started removing people from committee. And they just started doing the other things. And my fear is the institution fell today. Because You can't do the job if 8 people, you have 94% or 96% of your entire conference, but 8 people can partner with the whole other side. How do you govern? And for them to make a motion on me because I made a decision for the country that they agreed with, but they choose to do the other, that becomes a problem. Yes, sir.
Endorsing a successor to you, and then
I might. Yeah. I don't know who's running it. I'll talk to people.
And when you look back, is there anything you could have done differently with those 8 members?
Yeah, a lot of them I helped get elected, so I probably should have picked somebody else. You know, you know, I love these 200. They've gone through so much. They're down in the conference. They want me to. They'll say they're going to keep voting for me. I think you should put the country first. You know, this job was never about me. I hope you felt that I always felt, what can we do best to move forward? I mean, I treated Hakeem the way I wanted to be treated. I'd tell him things we were doing throughout, so he never was questioned. I wanted to bring the body back differently. We created a select committee on China. I changed the Intel committee. They just came back from MIT where they all had bipartisan briefing on AI and quantum. Started doing briefings with AI the whole conference of Republicans and Democrats alike. We're far from solving that problem, but I'm proud of what we were able to do there. So we'll continue. Yes, sir.
When did you make this decision? Did you know when you eventually succeeded that you would not run again, or was this right afterwards?
You know, not all those 8, but these are the same people that never voted for me. They thought it was big. They went to present after we went through 15 rounds. Why do I do something for myself that can hurt the country? Why create? I'm not quite sure those individuals are looking to be productive. It concerns me as a Republican based upon watching what they do. I want to be a Republican and a conservative that governs. And we're going to have to find our way to do that. The challenge is, we had so many opportunities. These are the same people that sat on the floor and criticized me that we didn't get all 12 spending bills done, but we first had to do a debt ceiling that they didn't support. They held up every appropriation bill in the summer because they wouldn't let it come through. After the debt ceiling, they stopped us from doing anything on the floor. When we had a continuing resolution that would do something on the border, I listened to one talk about how it made him think about the border, and when he voted against it. And then they wanted to challenge me because I worked with the other side so America could go forward and government could stay open. You know, if you have to lose for something, I will always lose for the country. It is a much better battle to have. Yes, sir. Change the rules.
Yeah, he's
Do you
going to
think
take us
I
out
let
here.
it? I mean, for the whole point, I mean, if you talk about like a GAETZ, the GAETZ came to the whole conference and said, we will never use this. We will never use this, you know. I mean, this is a man that sat there on the 14th vote and said, okay, I'm going to vote for you next time, and falls back and not. So, I mean, it's just the trustworthiness of a lot of individuals. It makes it difficult.
Damn, I'm
but
not getting
I
like
do
any
not
viewers.
think, regardless of who the
Here, I
speaker
wonder-
is, that you should have that rule. You know, everybody had it but Pelosi, but it was never used until it started getting used against Boehner. And if the entire other, if you can always count on the other party to vote in the block against it, then you're allowing 4 to 5 people to control whatever. So it doesn't matter even if you have 96%. So that is not a government that works. That is chaotic.
Last question.
Yeah. Okay, go right ahead.
I hear you talking about the challenge of governing, challenging Republicans. I wonder what you think this means, what this says about the
I don't think it says about the Republican Party. I think it says something about some people who are not a conservative. I mean, if you were a conservative and you only had one entity making the battle and you vote against securing the border, you vote against cutting this wasteful spending, and then you partner with all the Democrats.
They didn't cut wasteful spending. All they did was that they got it lowered down from what the Democrats wanted the spending to be. It wasn't a cut of the spending. They were still spending more than what they were originally. It's not like they cut the spending. They got it down from what the Democrats wanted. That's a big difference. A huge difference. It's fucking stupid that people believe that that's what they did.
Raise it all the other different ways. That's not a conservative. Look, you all know Matt Gaetz. You know it was personal.
No,
it had nothing to do about spending.
What personally did he have against you?
Everything he accused somebody of, he was doing. It all was about getting attention from you. I mean, we're getting email fundraisers from him as he's doing it. Join in quickly. That's not governing. That's not becoming of a member of Congress. And regardless of what you think, I've seen the text. It was all about his ethics. But that's all right.
Mr. President, can I just clarify really quickly from the first question? Are you considering resigning?
No, I said, he asked about that. I haven't thought about that. I said, yeah.
And then just where you're placing the blame, you said the institution is...
Look. No. I'm not going to blame anybody. There's not blame anywhere. Look, I give it as good as I get it, right? So you know the challenge. I knew going in. You would take a poll all the time. Is he going to get thrown out this week? But you know what? If I lose my job over doing what I truly believe what's right, I'm very at peace with it. You asked earlier, like, when did I decide? I knew they would make the motion on me. It didn't make one bit of difference. I felt very comfortable in that decision. And I think the American public believed that decision was right. That's the conference's decision.
Mr. Carty, now you mentioned that you're looking to maybe help instill in another way. Would you consider having another position somewhere in Congress, whether it's leadership or the chairman?
No. There's a lot of great people in conference. There's always other people to do jobs. It is amazing the talent that we had. And the one thing I've always hoped as Speaker that we lifted more of that talent up. I look at people doing a lot of different jobs and the different opportunities we did, and they're doing an exceptional job. We have so much talent. It is remarkable.
Damn it.
Yes.
Is this kind of in your mind a little bit preordained from the beginning? Obviously,
I was really hoping that he wasn't going to do that. That was the one thing I was hoping against. Damn.
I made history, didn't I?
Well, we did do that,
Yeah.
But was that
also, Matt Gaetz made history, so.
Because of the narrow majority and because the writing might have been on the wall.
Well, would any of you think if it took that long and you had a one person, you knew it was always a possibility, so that was fine. Didn't bother me, didn't change any of my decision I made. But it was interesting. I read a tweet the other day of Matt Rosendale. He goes to Mass every day. But you know what he said his prayer was all last year? That Republicans didn't have a big victory, that they had a narrow victory. When you have members like that are part of your team, you got a tough team. You know, look, when I was in business, I got to hire and fire who worked with me. Somebody else hires them, somebody else fires them. My job was to inspire them. I think we did some good work, and I think we'll continue to do great work. Yes, sir.
Can you reflect back on 2010 when you guys were the young guys, right? You, Paul Ryan.
Eric Cantor, yeah.
Now, all three of you guys have been essentially...
Well, we're not that young anymore.
Well, all three of you have been pushed out by so-called more conservative members.
No, let's be fair, and it's wrong that you ever say. They are not conservatives.
Yeah, they are.
They voted against, one, the greatest cut in history that Congress has ever voted for, $2 trillion. They voted against work requirements. They voted against NEPA reform. They voted against border security. They voted against... They don't get to say they're conservative because they're angry and they're chaotic. That's not the party I belong to.
Conservative.
The party of Reagan was if you believed in your principles that you could govern in a conservative way. They are not conservatives and they do not have the right to have the title. Yes.
You worried that Donald Trump will turn your party in this direction that makes it difficult to govern, makes it difficult to get conservative wins?
Why do you say that? Because your question doesn't hold true to history. When Donald Trump was president, we did tax reform. You can look at all of our different successes. So, I mean, you may dislike the policy, but we've been very successful. You watched the Abraham Accords. I mean, you can go victory after victory. The price of gas, we were energy independent at the time. We had more businesses growing at the time. We didn't have to evacuate our embassies. You know, it's easy on its merit to see the difference of what Biden has destroyed America to what the policies we were able to create. Yes, sir.
I might just have to try to take Africa.
No, we didn't ask for anything.
You didn't ask for anything at all? You didn't ask for any impeachment inquiry or anything like that?
No. And, you know, I have a lot of respect for Hakeem. He wants to win the majority. I heard what they said in conference, you know. Why would they vote for me if I've won every time as leader? I raised 70% of all the money. It's an opportunity for them. The real question to the 8, why would you enable and allow the Democrats to do it? That's the question, yes.
Do you regret making concessions to those holdouts?
What concessions did I make?
Leans towards Democrats to give them possibly
To what?
one or two speakership in the first.
Look, I'm not going to, no. I'm a Republican. I win by Republicans and I lose by Republicans. It's not that way. And so, did I work with, I believe you should work across the aisle. I worked across the aisle at times. Do I want to make the bill the most conservative possible? Yes, that's the goal. It's difficult when you can't get 218 for the conservative bill. And then they want to challenge you when you went and solved and kept the government open. Yes, sir.
The last few months, you've been a firewall against the debt ceiling crisis, government shutting down.
We did pretty well, didn't we?
How big of a risk do you think a shutdown is in November without you as speaker?
Oh, other people can do the job. You know, it's interesting. I've never received so many texts from so many senators about how big a play we just did the other day, or how many congratulations about the debt ceiling and the other. I mean, if I would go back to the days before the debt ceiling, none of you even thought I'd get a meeting with the president. All of you'd ask me, is it going to fall off the cliff? End of the day, we worked an agreement out. Some of those people got mad about it, but 2/3, the highest number of Republicans ever voted for a debt ceiling when you had it. And you only negotiated based upon the deal we went. That was the moment they wanted to go after, and that's what they continued to follow through.
You mentioned that
Yeah.
you don't mind negotiating, you think that's part of the job. So
You should. Look, government's designed that you have to have compromise. No, you can't get everything that you want. You know, you got a House, you got a Senate, but you had more to the question.
Well, my point was, my question was just going to be that some of the criticism leveled at you today by both Democrats and by Republicans is that perhaps you've been too transactional.
In which way?
Part about keeping your word.
In which word did I not keep? Name one thing I did not keep.
GAETZ says that there's several things you didn't keep
From oh, no, tell me. What did GAETZ say? What did I not keep in GAETZ' mind? Because GAETZ had never been a part of a discussion. Just because GAETZ said something, don't believe it's true. I haven't heard him say one true thing yet.
Democrats say you reneged
On what?
ceiling bill.
On what?
On the debt ceiling.
That is not true. So no. If you're going to ask the question, you're going to say it. Tell me how I did something different on the debt ceiling bill. Any of you. Tell me what I did different on the debt ceiling, that I didn't keep my word.
You said it was a floor, you said it was a ceiling.
Is it not a ceiling? Okay, this is the Okay, no. When you agree to spending levels, that's the maximum amount you can spend. This is what is wrong with Washington. Because it's the height that you can spend, you can also spend less. We're a different body. So does any of you believe then the Senate broke their word on the debt ceiling? Because they spent more than the limit. But somehow I'm wrong because I want to save the taxpayers more money. We're our own body. I have 2 children. If I give them each $100 for dinner and one spends $100 and one spends $80, am I going to yell at the one who spent $80 and said, oh my God, you got to spend it all? It's not our money. And why am I getting criticized because I'm fighting for the American people that we can eliminate waste? And you know what? We're our own body. So if we can pass the bills, and the Senate can pass the bills, but they pass them higher, but they haven't passed anything, somehow I'm wrong? I kept my word. I did not spend over the limit. They broke their word.
You don't feel there are 2 transactions?
No, he definitely broke
Okay,
his
you
word.
used the word. How was I transactional? If you ask a question, I want you to show an example.
What their agreement
Give me an
was.
example.
The definition is basically this for that.
So what did I do this for that?
Well, on the Ukraine, on the CR, you've been talking about leading in, leading out, and then finally put it out.
No, you're making no sense. What transactional did it? No, I did no transactional. I tried to pass a conservative stopgap measure that secured the border and actually cut spending. When that didn't go, the only bill that was going was sitting over in the Senate that had a stopgap measure, disaster, and Ukraine. I made a decision as Speaker to keep the government open, and I put something on the floor. And let me get this straight to all of you. Because someone said I did wrong. 72-hour rule, I'm the only one who's lived by it. We're the ones who created it. We never broke the 72-hour rule. The bill I put on the floor was a suspension, which takes a 2/3 vote. And you know what? You can put a suspension on a rule, and you can waive it based upon the leadership. That's exactly what I followed. So my question to you is, when somebody says something, don't take it that it's gospel. Why don't you ask them to point? When GAETZ said I didn't follow, said, show me one place. You saw Massey, Thomas Massey, who is the hardest line person, say we followed all the rules all the time.
You gotta take him
that
out right now.
He was in the room when the agreement was made, and then we surpassed what we said we would do. So if you ask me a question, I'm going to answer back, because when it's not true, it's not fair.
How important is it that the Speaker of the House be a member of the institution? Some members are floating in the
They always float some other name. Yes, you had. Okay. First of all, you got to be in the institution to understand how it works. And look, it's legal to have somebody else. I just do not think that would ever be good. Do I regret? You start with this question. No, I don't think you've ever been positive on yet, but come on. I have high hope. This is going to be exciting. That's a good thing.
But do you regret not reaching out personally to people like Nancy Mace, Tim Burchett, who sat down on the House steps today and told reporters that you did something condescending to him?
Okay, let's get through this. I personally like Tim Burchett, and I called Tim Burchett because I read his quote. And Tim Burchett's a friend of mine, which I'm kind of shocked by this. And Tim Burchett, in his quote, said he's leaning towards no, he's on CNN, but I'm going to pray about it. So I pick up the phone and call him, because I didn't think he was already there. I said, Tim, I read your quote. You said you're going to pray about it. I wanted to talk to you about it. And somehow he construes that I'm a Christian. I'm not going to offend somebody. I simply read his quote back. I thought there was still an opening, and I wanted to talk to him about it. He never mentioned anything when we were communicating like that. And he said, Nancy Mace is a whole nother story. Okay? Let's just be honest here. This is the one that I just got a text from her primary opponent saying, "Why'd you spend $3 million?" But I called Nancy Mace's chief of staff.
Why would you attack with the two, bro?
And because I called the chief of staff. Well, she was on The View saying I didn't keep my word, so I didn't know what to... Listen, I can't say this in the press, but okay. But so, no, you keep it among yourselves, right? Wait till my book. No, so I call her chief of staff because, I don't know, maybe I don't connect her with someone else, but I just said to him, I said, can you please tell me, I don't understand, where have I not kept my word? You know what our chief of staff said? You have kept your word, 100%. Members come to me, and one thing, I don't like the idea that a member comes and tries to leverage me. I don't go for that. You know, I'll vote for the bill you do. That's not well. But if you have a problem with the bill, I want to help you. But I can't sit there and write your entire bill and work it all the way through committee. We just got our one bill out. And it came back, the other bill doing on guns, it just wasn't working. Do you want to do something else? We did something else. I just don't appreciate
the boomer generation
bite my lip.
And its consequences have been a disaster for the human race.
Americanism, not globalism, will be our credo.
I'm sorry, Brittany Venti, but I just... The boomer generation and...
Now, if somehow he gets fired, I'll still get him a job.
Last question.
Yes. Well, I'm being too honest now?
Your argument about the health of the institution might have resonated with more Democrats, if not for your response to January 6th. Do you regret...
Oh, my God. No, but do I regret the Democrats playing games with January 6th? Yes. They played so many politics. What they did to this institution and what they did to this building was so wrong. The idea that they put magnetometers there, the idea that they would go to any Republican member that they had been co-sponsors of bills and they no longer could be a co-sponsor, that they would fine members $5,000 if the magnetometers went on, but when Nancy went around it or Clyburn was supposed to get a fine, it all got waived. The idea that bills didn't have to go through committee. The idea is they created a select committee on January 6th and they wouldn't let the minority appoint who to do it. Look, I'm trying to change all that and bring the body back till they can work together. But I think they did a lot of damage to us. Yes, sir.
I was trying to pass the appropriations bills one by one. What are your expectations for that process now that you're not?
Well, that's always been my goal. You know, I just talked to Mitch yesterday, and I had to call into Schumer, and I talked to Hakeem last night. What I was going to do is, because we had taken 5 up, we passed 4 of them. I was going to start individually pre-conferencing so we can get this work done. I'm concerned with the timeline now. Look, I truly believe at the end of the day we can get this all worked out. I do believe at the end of the day we could find common ground and do something about the border.
I do want to watch Nick's stream about this because he said that he didn't think that it was going to happen also. So I want to see how stoked he is on him getting rid of
running
McCarthy.
A whole story about the border with people just walking across. You know, Pritzker sent a letter yesterday about the immigration. Massachusetts governor, state of emergency. Connecticut. Everybody is becoming the #1. They cannot ignore it. And I had told my members all before, I heard GAETZ say something on the floor that, oh my God, Kevin asked for a stopgap measure when we came back. The whole plan was because those 8 and a few more had held up passing any of these appropriate bills all summer, I was going to do just what we did Saturday, a stopgap measure with disaster. I'd gone out to Hawaii. We looked what happened in Florida. Those people shouldn't be held back. And we could finish doing it all individually, but somehow they think that's a dirty word. Yes. Oh, yeah, we text and call. Oh, you know, my poor mom. Have you guys met my mom yet? My mom's fabulous. My mom's this Italian lady. And she calls me the other day. She said, oh, she gets worried. She reads what you guys write. And she says, I'm so nervous. I'm so nervous. I said, why, Mom? It's all right. She said, last night, she went in the house and she left her car running in the garage all night long, right? And my mom only fills her car up once a week at Costco on Wednesdays, then calls me because the price, she still lives in California, the price of gas is so high. She asked me what I'm going to do about it. But look, I think this job is always harder on your loved ones than you yourself.
Oh.
So they'll be okay.
Did you make a side deal
No. No. Look, unequivocally no. Oh, well, if you want to categorize this, let me see, because people think some big side deal. I did tell when we were doing the stopgap measure, there was a concern in there, does it have transferability on money? I believed and my staff believed it did, but what I did say to the White House, if it does not, if you think some way it doesn't do it the way you would, I will fix that. I did say that, and I did say I do it. Look, I support arming Ukraine. That doesn't mean sending them cash, but arming Ukraine. But I have been on the White House even before they sent this supplemental. I said, you guys are doing it all wrong by just sending us a supplemental. And I think the president is failing here because he's not telling the American public what is the mission. Now, we have a lot of members who are Navy SEALs who've been in theater and F-18 pilots, and they're frustrated. They want to support, but they don't want to support an ever-ending war. They want to see what's going on here. And I've really been on the White House. You've got to come down and talk to about it, but you should listen to them and the prospects. I'm really concerned, though, long-term. What's happening around looks a lot like the 1930s. A lot of actions that Putin takes is very similar to Hitler. If you are history buffs, you'll know Hitler served in the World War I army, right? He hated that his country collapsed, and they signed the Treaty of Versailles. And what did he do? He ran and created a new party and ran in democracy again and again and again until he won. And when he won, what did he do? He took the freedoms away. And then he rebuilt his military, and even though it went against the Treaty of Versailles, the world powers said nothing. And then what did he do? He took part of Czechoslovakia. He took Austria. And then he told the entire world he was going to take the rest of it on a given day. So now the world power could not sit back, so in come Neville Chamberlain. But what had happened? Well, Hitler loved it because he was equal now to the world power, but he saw weakness. Neville Chamberlain made him sign a piece of paper and told us peace for our time. And then he invaded Poland the next year, and World War II began. If you study Putin, Putin didn't serve in the Soviet Union Army, but he served in the KGB. He hated that his country collapsed to the West. He hated it so much when Gorbachev died, he still didn't attend the funeral. What did he do? He rebuilt his military. But he learned something. A military makes you strong, but dependency makes you weak. He rebuilt it by selling his natural gas to Europe. But when his pipeline that went through Ukraine, when they changed power, he didn't want to pay. So he proposed a new pipeline, Nord Stream 2.
All right.
Everybody loved it.
It's getting boring. Let's watch about the Trump gag. The Trump gag guy. Gag order. Let's see if they got anything on the Trump gag order.
Folks, if we're going to win re-election, I need you by my side from the very start. Whatever you're able to chip in, even if it's just $1 or $2, will have a huge impact on our campaign. This might just be our hardest fight yet. Will you make a donation and stand with Kamala and me? It'd mean the world to us. Thank you.
As we have some breaking news out of New York City. There's been breaking news in the case against Donald Trump, the fraud case. And this is Judge Arthur Engoron, who Donald Trump has been going after outside of the courtroom, has now put a gag order on all parties in the case, a specific gag order, though, regarding posting or publicly speaking about any member of his staff. This follows a Truth Social post from Donald Trump earlier today naming the judge's clerk and claiming that she was she shouldn't be in that position because she was friendly with Chuck Schumer. There was a picture of the two of them together. Joining us now is NBC News correspondent Vaughn Hilliard, who's outside the courthouse, and former FBI General Counsel Andrew Weissman, and NBC News legal analyst. So, Vaughn, I very briefly touched on what happened, but please do explain what led to this gag order.
Right, I just ran out of the courtroom where this trial is beginning again here this afternoon in Lower Manhattan, and that principal law clerk of the judge continues to sit next to him about 3 feet away and about 10 feet away from Donald Trump, who remains in the courtroom this afternoon. This began in around the 11 a.m. hour during one of the courtroom breaks when Donald Trump posted on his so-called Truth social media account a photo of this principal law clerk with Chuck Schumer and suggested that she was Chuck Schumer's girlfriend. There is nothing to suggest, let's be very clear, that the principal law clerk is a girlfriend of Chuck Schumer. This was an image that was taken from her Instagram account. Of course, Chuck Schumer is the senator of New York, and there is nothing that disqualifies an individual from getting a photo with the senator of New York. But Donald Trump put this out into the sphere. Then during the course of the lunch hour, Donald Trump and his attorneys entered the courtroom about 6 different times, coming in and out to their holding room before returning to the courtroom. There was a period of time in which the press was not allowed in there while the attorney general's prosecutors were inside of the courtroom. And what we do know ultimately that came of all this was in the 1 o'clock hour, Donald Trump removed that post from his social media account. And then upon the reconvening of the courtroom, the judge made it very clear, saying, in part, I want to read you, quote, "Consider this a gag order on all parties with respect to posting or publicly speaking about any member of my staff." Of course, Donald Trump has attacked the judge in this case head on, but it turned to the next level in him imposing this gag order on Donald Trump and the parties involved in this case when it came to directly attacking the law clerk. The proceedings continue here this afternoon, Katie, and that principal law clerk continues to sit by the judge's side, and Donald Trump continues to stare both of them down as the first witness continues to testify in front of the prosecution.
Just
Katie.
a little more context. This was a picture that she posted on a Instagram account that she maintained in connection with a campaign for a civil court judgeship.
No one's joined the stream on Kick. Long overdue.
It was a late development this afternoon, a very important and serious one. On day 2 of Donald Trump's $250 million civil fraud lawsuit in the state of New York. When court resumed after a break this afternoon, Trump was there again. He was angrily admonished by the judge, Judge Arthur Engoron. He was scolded for posts that he made on social media today. Well, we believe this is, if not the first, then a rarity. Those posts are gone. They have been deleted, apparently, after the judge said he ordered them taken down. So what did they say? What did Trump share and then email to his millions and millions of followers? Why, it was an attack on the judge's clerk, featuring a link to her Instagram account and a photo of her next to Senator Chuck Schumer. The judge stated plainly that personal attacks on his staff are unacceptable and suggested violations would be met with swift and meaningful sanctions. Quote, consider this a gag order on all parties with respect to posting or publicly speaking about any member of my staff, end quote. It is the latest edition of Trump's longstanding woe is me, blow up all the norms routine, his phony sense of victimhood on which he built a political brand. He wants people to think everyone's out to get little old me, so he takes vicious, cheap shots even when they violate the law. In fact, Trump called it, quote, very unfair that this isn't a jury trial in New York. But as Judge Engoron noted, Trump's legal team never asked for a jury trial in New York. And even if they had, it is not clear that they would have gotten one based on the type of case Attorney General Tish James brought. Trump lawyer Alina Habba said in a statement that a jury trial, quote, was never an option, a case made harder to make, as our Deadline Legal blog notes, when you never ask for a jury trial. During another break today, Trump told reporters that he'd take the stand, quote, at the appropriate time. And so he may soon find himself in an environment uncomfortable and sometimes dangerous legally for him, where the facts matter and his perceived sense of being a victim does not. We would warn him to be careful what he wishes for. Joining us now from outside the courthouse, MSNBC legal analyst Lisa Rubin. David Jolly still with us, and joining me at the table, senior editor for Bloomberg Opinion and MSNBC political analyst Tim O'Brien. Lisa, there was drama on the House floor, but there was in some ways bigger drama in that courthouse behind you today. Take us inside.
Well, Nicole, the examination today, or the court proceedings, really focused on a gentleman named Donald Bender. He is Donald Trump's former lead accountant at Mazars and was principally responsible for the issuance of these statements of financial condition that are at the heart of this case. But as you noted, the bigger drama was not in the Trump team's effort to discredit Donald Bender and make it seem as if it was folly for him to rely on the Trump team for information. Rather, they should have been able to rely on him as a certified public accountant. The real drama was in what happened outside the courtroom, because Trump, during a break, must have posted the social media post you were talking about earlier that then became the subject matter of the gag order. And hell hath no fury, Nicole, like a judge whose staff is messed with. I can tell you that from personal experience as a former law clerk. Judge Engoron, who normally has a Larry David-like demeanor, was suffering no fools when he talked about the fact that no one should be allowed to talk about his staff in social media posts and emails or just speaking publicly without suffering severe consequences. He was unambiguous about that, Nicole.
I mean, Tim, Trump has attacked DOJ, IRS, FBI, Judge Chutkan, Fani Willis, the jurors. I mean, it never stops. This is an aggressive response to something he does as easily and readily as the rest of us sort of wake up and reach for coffee.
A long overdue response. You know, I think looking at this is, it's just another example of how utterly thuggish, obscene, and dangerous this buffoon can be when he's left to his own devices. And he's been doing it for years. Judge Curiel in the Trump University case, Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss in the Georgia voter fraud case. He shifts between people who can defend themselves and have the resources to, journalists like you and me, to average people who are innocent bystanders, because at the end of the day, he's a bully. And he doesn't really care about the consequences of his own actions. And I think, you know, we're used to Donald Trump being obscene and being a thug and being dangerous, but we shouldn't accommodate his thuggishness or his obscenities, because doing that is dangerous. And I think one of the things you're seeing now is repeated challenges of institutions and the rule of law and the court system is people saying, well, you know, he's a former president. It would be wrong to put him in jail if he violates his gag order. This has come up in the January 6th case with Judge Chutkan. She has repeatedly told him that he's trying to, you know, his public statements intimidate witnesses. They could taint the jury pool. They will pervert the legal process. And I think at the end of the day, you can only warn a defendant so many times, and then you have to take action. And you either gag him, as he was done today, or you ultimately may have to put him in jail. And I think the real test with Donald Trump is that he has to observe the same standards as everyone else, not in spite of being an ex-president, but because he's an ex-president.
What does it say to you that he hurriedly took it down?
Well, part of it is just his sort of belief, like the way that like children, when they're corrected by their parents, they close their eyes and they pretend like it didn't happen. I didn't see it. It didn't happen. So there's part of just the inner 7-year-old of Donald Trump. The other part is he recognized
probably
right
because
away
they
that he was
fucking
caught
put a
out
gag order
being
against
a
him.
bully.
You
And then I
dumb
think the third
cunt.
element is that already had done his work. Once he puts it up, his tens of millions of followers on social are going to disseminate it. So he can he can sort of make up the excuse publicly, well, I had second thoughts and I took it down. You know, I think, you know, what's so extraordinary about this one, again, is she's a court clerk. She is relatively powerless. And we're in an era where people will come to people's homes. People will take action against anyone Donald Trump identifies as a threat to him. And he knows it. So the fact that he went ahead and did it, I think, says something very deep about who he is. And I think institutions have to rise to this moment and check it every second of the way with as much discipline and severity as possible, because we're heading down a very bad path right now in the U.S.
Yeah, I mean, if I could get back every time I said the rule of law is under attack. David Jolly, he names names. He doesn't ever attack the rule of law. His posts don't say rule of law and a picture of the rule of law next to a Democrat or in front of a baseball bat. He names names. And we choose not to amplify them here. It's the right thing to do. But to Tim's point, they don't need help amplifying them. And Donald Trump never apologizes when and if violence is the natural extension of the conspiracy theories he peddled. He didn't apologize for the person who believed the conspiracy theories he repeated over and over again and broke into Speaker Pelosi's house and hurt her husband with a hammer. He doesn't apologize when the shooter in New Mexico went out and shot at the homes of election workers. Didn't
If you're blaming
apologize
that
for
on
repeating
him,
the big lie.
you're
In fact, he
fucking
repeats
retarded.
it. What do we do? What do the rest? It feels like Trump's behavior is now such an established pattern. We know what he's going to do. What do the rest of us do? It seems Judge Engoron gave us a good example.
That's right, Nicole. Either out of vanity or political strategy or both, one of the tools that Donald Trump reaches for is to incite violence. There's no greater example than January 6th. But we also know, as you've mentioned, the lone wolf, where he identifies a specific individual or a specific target, and then his audience, whether it's been amplified or by media or not, his audience receives that message and goes to action.
Stupid.
And I think there are two things to address. First, Donald Trump as a defendant or as someone in a civil proceeding needs to be sanctioned, and he needs to suffer the same accountability under the law that anybody else would. Politically, he needs to be defeated. He needs to be crushed. His movement needs to be crushed politically at the ballot box, because that's what it's going to take. And I think the way to do that politically in America, in a two-party system, our politics is informed by the contrast. And John Harwood pointed out today, you have Donald Trump, the leading candidate for the White House on the Republican side, being sanctioned by a court, about to be found liable for at least $250 million. You have Kevin McCarthy losing the speakership, Republicans in chaos, and you have Joe Biden negotiating prescription drugs for seniors in the Medicare program. That contrast is how Donald Trump ultimately suffers political accountability and loses his power, if you will. Now, what has he created culturally? That's a deeper question for us to examine and study.
And you know we will do that with your help. Lisa, I want to come back to you. Donald Trump started with this crushing blow. The judge had already decided, had already ruled on, in summary judgment, the question of fraud. So what is still at stake, and what happened today on the legal front?
So, Nicole, let's take your first question first. There are 6 more claims to decide, and although Judge Arthur Engoron already decided that Trump and his organization and the other defendants engaged in persisted and repeated fraud, intent is not a portion of the statute for which he's already been found liable. The remaining violations are essentially that he has committed repeated and persistent fraud and illegality by violating sections of New York's criminal law having to do with false financial statements, falsifying business records, and committing insurance fraud. And if you're the Attorney General, the reason you want to prove these in a court of law is because you want the full smorgasbord of relief that you've asked for in your complaint. You want to bar Donald Trump from doing business in the state of New York, whether it's by borrowing money from New York lenders or whether serving as an officer or director of a New York company. You want all of that and a bag of chips, too, and that's why they're here at trial, Nicole.
We are joined right now by my friend and former colleague, former MSNBC host Chris Matthews. As this story was shaping up, I said, you know who I'd really like to talk to? I'd really like to know what Chris Matthews thinks of all this. I would guess that it's a little sad, but also not super surprising as a student of these figures and these characters. Tell me what you thought as you watched this go down.
The Speaker of the House is a constitutional office, as you must have mentioned by now. It's not like Majority Leader of the Senate. It's part of the Constitution. The person, he's in line to be a president right after the vice president. If situations develop like that, extraordinary situations, to take it down a leader is unimaginable. It's remarkable. A speaker sort of stands above the crowd. He's responsible to both parties. Anybody can go into his office and speak to him and treat him as the Speaker of the House. And so it's not just another political job, and it's not just a hack's job, I can tell you. It's a job for a leader, somebody who can pull their party caucus with them. And I think sometimes it's easier if you're on the left in the Democratic Party like Pelosi, or if you're Schumer. Somehow if you're from one of the coasts, it may be better for you because you're one of the people that might cause trouble in terms of leadership. I think Pelosi can talk to AOC, for example. The president, of course, Biden can talk to Bernie Sanders. They can talk to each other. It's not like they're from extreme differences. It's hard for somebody in McCarthy's situation who doesn't have a clear ideology that's recognizable. He doesn't seem to represent the heart and soul of the Republican Party as it is today, which is mainly MAGA, but not all MAGA. There's a lot of quiet conversations that go on. You're not really MAGA in many cases, so people are maybe hoping for the future when it arrives. But it's remarkable because the Speaker, the idea that you could bring him down with one vote is extraordinary. That condition that McCarthy had to set to become Speaker is probably the problem, to allow yourself open to just one malcontent, basically. And this guy apparently has a grudge, and he's operating on his grudge, which there's always somebody that's unhappy. And I guess Matt Gaetz is the one who's unhappy right now.
Jake Sherman tweeted that for the last 12 years, members of the Republican House Conference have been at war with their leader. And that made me think, and you covered a lot of this era too. I mean, Boehner was pushed out by the extreme in his caucus, Paul Ryan. I mean, it is sort of it's not a new news story. It just seems that they're going to new lengths to punish their leaders. What's the natural extension? What happens next?
Well, what came before with Boehner, we always thought, watching it as a journalist, I was watching him leave the White House. He had made a deal with the president, and you get the sense that his chief of staff had just called him and said, we are going to have problems with that. I can already hear the problem, the racket about that. There's going to be objection. You can't pull that deal off. So he couldn't deliver, and I think that was one of the reasons he and the other guys left. They couldn't deliver. But I got to go back to what the Democrats were not always the same party like they look like today, like under Hakeem Jeffries. They're basically, once the South turned against white Southerners, Democrats, I should say, and once they ran out of the South largely, with some exceptions like Georgia, they were basically a homogeneous party. That's why they didn't have people that like the 70 down to 40, but sometimes it was 70 conservative and moderate Democrats who opposed Tip O'Neill. But they would end up gradually going along with them in the end. But they were there, and they were very conservative. They liked things like Social Security, but they didn't like a lot of the Democratic Party program. And that went on until the Civil Rights Bill really had its full effect from 64 on. And finally, after a while, Lyndon Johnson's prediction that the party would lose the South came true. But after that sort of long-term disagreement, the Democratic Party is pretty similar to each other. The big city people aren't that different from the suburban people. I'm surprised in this vote that why didn't Brian Fitzpatrick of Bucks County, which is not a wild right-wing county, why would he vote with the leadership, against the leadership here? Some of these people are going to be, I think, confronted by more moderate Republicans to say, are you that MAGA that you had to vote this way? Why did you have to go with Gaetz? I don't see Gaetz as a leader, naturally. I don't think he is a leader. He's a malcontent. But, now they got to pick a leader. They got to come up with 218 for a leader. They have to. That's the deal, Nicole, as we all know. It all comes down to 270 electoral votes to be president and 218 votes to get something through the House, and sometimes 60 votes to get anything regular through the Senate. and they're going to need 218 for the next person. And this is going to be one raggedy job. Because the guy will demand the same one vote. The one vote, you're out of here. What vote did they send, and you're gone. You know?
Yeah, it's no way to run a rodeo. I've got all these numbers written down because it does, you know, the math becomes a big part of the story. As we watch this unfold, I hope we can continue to call on you, my friend. No one knows more about that building than you.
Well, I'm not enjoying this. I like leadership. I think the Republican Party has turned on a lot of institutions. Like, listen to Vivek Ramaswamy. He's against every institution, the FBI, everybody, the IRS, everybody. Now they've turned on their own actual leadership. They have brought down the House. This is an extraordinary thing. They have brought down the House in the way Newt Gingrich brought down the Democrats. They're bringing down their own party. It's extraordinary.
It really is.
Their leadership is gone.
All right, let's see. Let's just watch some. I want to see this video.
When there's nothing holding you back, what would your thing be?
'Twas just getting dark on Halloween night. Monsters and ghosts were out for a fright. You're the...
Capitalism will kill us all. That is, if you trust Greta Thunberg, which maybe you should not. Free markets will save us all, if you trust Robert F. Kennedy Jr., which maybe you should not. Maybe we should talk about what capitalism and free markets are. Will they kill us or save us? That's what we'll talk about today. Before we talk about capitalism and markets and stuff, we need to talk about money. I don't mean my money, though while we're at it, check out my Patreon. I mean money in general. What do we even need money for? Suppose you have an apple, but you'd rather have an egg. You ask your friend Sue, the one with the chickens, and trade an egg for an apple. Okay, but what if Sue doesn't want an apple? She'd rather have a banana.
I actually think
no
I'm
problem.
done for
You
the
ask
day.
your friend Joe with the bananas if he will trade your apple for a banana.
I think I'm done for the day. All right, you guys, I'm tired. I've been streaming for 2 hours. I worked all day, and I'm going to go to bed. All right. It was a pretty cool day, though. We saw some historic moment happen, you know? That's pretty cool. And I enjoyed it. Other people didn't, but I did. I thought it was pretty fucking funny. So, I'll see you guys later. Peace.